Principle 12. The brain. The brain is not merely a biological organ. In Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill defines the brain as a broadcasting and receiving station, a place where thoughts are transmitted, received, amplified, and projected outward. Those who do not understand this principle live their entire lives within limits. Those who master it step into a higher level of control over money, power, and influence. Most people believe thoughts exist only inside their own heads. They assume thinking is private, invisible, and disconnected from the external world. This is one of the greatest misunderstandings. Hill states that every thought carries a frequency, and the brain is the instrument that tunes that frequency. When a thought is repeated long enough, with enough intensity and consistency, it does not only shape your actions, it begins to influence your environment, other people, and the opportunities that move toward you. People are not poor because they lack money. They are poor because their brains broadcast chaotic signals. Their thinking is scattered, their emotions unstable, their beliefs contradictory. One day they want wealth, the next day they fear risk. One moment they desire success, the next they diminish their own worth. Their brains never send out a clear signal strong enough for the world to respond. The wealthy operate differently. Their brains function with order. They choose a single frequency and maintain it over time, allowing every action, emotion, and decision to serve that signal. They do not think about many things at once. They think about the right thing for a long time. Hill emphasizes that the brain is activated most powerfully when emotion is involved. A cold, casual thought has little force, but a thought charged with strong emotion, desire, faith, determination, becomes alive. At that point, the brain is no longer just thinking, it is broadcasting. This is why faith plays a central role in the entire Think and Grow Rich philosophy. Faith is not merely a mental attitude, it is an amplifier. The same idea, when fueled by absolute belief, carries far more power than an idea entertained without conviction. The brain is also the meeting point between the conscious and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind gives commands, the subconscious executes. But when the conscious mind sends mixed signals, the subconscious takes no action. It responds only to what is repeated, emotionally felt, and accepted as truth. Mastery of the brain means controlling the flow of thoughts that enter the subconscious every single day. Hill explains that environment directly influences the brain's frequency. Negative conversations, distracting information, and doubtful people weaken the signal. In contrast, environments filled with disciplined thinkers, clear goals, and strong purpose help the brain synchronize at a higher frequency. This is why the mastermind principle is not only social strategy, but mental and energetic alignment. A powerful brain is not the most intelligent one, it is the most stable one. That stability comes from emotional control. Every time you react through fear, anger, or doubt, you distort the signal. Every time you remain calm and clear, the signal sharpens. Highly successful individuals share a common trait. They think slowly but deeply. They are not pulled by immediate stimulation. They invest time nurturing a single idea until it becomes part of their identity. Once an idea is embedded deeply within the brain, action becomes natural. There is no forcing, no need for motivation. Hill describes the brain as a filter. It does not receive everything. It only recognizes what matches its current frequency. If you believe money is harmful, opportunities will remain invisible to you even when they are directly in front of you. If you believe you are worthy of significant success, the brain automatically begins identifying paths that lead toward it. This explains why two people in the same situation can experience completely different outcomes. The difference is not circumstance, it is the signal their brains are sending. One sees obstacles, the other sees opportunity. Life responds according to the signal it receives. The brain is also the gateway to intuition. Hill describes intuition as the intersection between conscious thought and higher intelligence. But intuition does not speak to a chaotic mind. It appears only when the mind is quiet and focused. Those who live in constant mental noise never hear the deeper voice within. Training the brain is not about reading more or knowing more. It is about intentional thinking, selecting thoughts deliberately, repeating empowering thoughts, eliminating thoughts that weaken you. This is mental discipline, no different than physical training. Those who master it enter a different level of the game. At this stage, the brain no longer reacts to the world. It begins shaping a personal reality. You stop waiting for opportunity. You become the type of individual that opportunity seeks, not through magic, but through consistent mental frequency maintained over time. The principle of the brain is not designed for the masses. It demands absolute responsibility for one's own thoughts. No blaming, no excuses, no living by momentary emotion. Once you understand that every thought is a command sent to your future, you begin choosing thoughts with precision. This is the foundation of personal power, not power over others, but power over oneself. And from that foundation, wealth, influence, and long-term success emerge as natural consequences.
If in the first part we viewed the brain as a center for transmitting and receiving thought energy, then this part goes deeper into how the brain actually operates in the real lives of successful people. Because understanding the brain in theory is one thing. Using it as a strategic instrument to create power, wealth, and influence is a completely different level. The brain is not merely a container for thoughts. It is a filter. Every day, thousands of signals enter from the environment, from other people's words, from news, images, and old memories. But the brain does not receive everything passively. It selects. And that selection process determines who you become. Most people allow their environment to program their brain. What they hear repeatedly, they accept as truth. They live inside the fears of the crowd, the limits of their family, the assumptions of society, and over time, their brain adapts to that level as a safe standard. Once the brain becomes accustomed to a standard, it resists any change beyond it. This is why most people do not fail because they lack ability, but because their brain automatically pulls them back to what feels familiar. The wealthy and truly powerful understand this mechanism deeply. They do not leave the brain on autopilot. They deliberately reprogram it. They choose their environment, the information they consume, and the people they associate with, because they understand that the brain is an adaptive system. Whatever you expose it to consistently, it will accept as normal. The brain does not perfectly distinguish between reality and imagination. When an idea is repeated with enough emotional intensity, the brain responds as if it were real. This is the scientific foundation behind belief, confidence, and fear. Those who master the brain understand that they do not need to wait for results before believing. They establish belief first and allow the brain to guide behavior in alignment with that belief. A properly trained brain begins to search for evidence that confirms the beliefs installed within it. If you believe you are capable of creating significant value, your brain will automatically notice opportunities, relationships, and information that align with that belief. If you believe the world is dangerous and unfair, your brain will see only threats and reasons to hesitate. The most dangerous condition is not a weak brain, but a brain that has been programmed incorrectly without its owner realizing it. Such a person believes they are thinking independently, when in reality they are replaying borrowed beliefs. They call it reality, when it is simply the output of an outdated mental program. The principle of the brain forces you to confront an uncomfortable truth. The quality of your life reflects the quality of the thoughts your brain broadcasts every day. You cannot transmit chaotic signals and expect orderly results. You cannot maintain undisciplined thinking and hope for a disciplined life. The wealthy place immense value on mental quiet, not because they are fragile, but because they understand that the brain requires space to process, connect, and transmit clearly. A brain overstimulated by social media, news, arguments, and comparison loses the ability for deep focus, and the loss of deep focus is the loss of long-term advantage. At higher levels, the brain becomes a strategic weapon. Those who master it do not react instantly to everything that happens. They first observe their internal response, then choose their action. That pause is power. While others are dragged by emotion, they remain composed. While others act out of fear or excitement, they act from long-term intent. The brain is also the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. The thoughts you repeat, the images you nurture, and the internal dialogue you maintain gradually sink into the subconscious. Once there, they guide your behavior silently. This is why Napoleon Hill emphasized that the brain does not merely receive thoughts, it amplifies them. Those who understand this principle do not speak to themselves carelessly. They are disciplined with internal language. They do not allow weakening statements or self-diminishing narratives to repeat. Not because they are blindly positive, but because they understand that every thought is a command issued to the brain. When the brain is trained to operate in order, it begins to synchronize naturally with other principles. Decision-making becomes faster because self-doubt fades. Persistence becomes effortless because long-term objectives are accepted as normal. Energy transmutation becomes effective because the brain knows how to channel force in a single direction. At this stage, the individual does not need to appear intelligent. Clarity itself creates authority. They speak less, but every word carries weight. They do not need to debate constantly because they are no longer seeking validation through argument. A powerful brain is not one that operates at full capacity at all times, but one that knows when to engage and when to rest. The ability to pause thought, clear the mind, and return to deep focus is the mark of a well-trained brain. This part of Principle 12 emphasizes one central truth. The brain is neither an enemy to overcome nor a random gift. It is a tool, and like all powerful tools, it serves only those who use it with awareness, discipline, and intention. In the next part, we will go deeper still. How the brain connects with the collective field of thought, how minds operating at the same frequency find one another, and why major success is almost never achieved in isolation, but in aligned groups of individuals moving at the same level. Once you understand that the brain is not just a place where thoughts happen, but the central broadcasting station of your entire life, everything changes. You stop treating thoughts as harmless and emotions as random. You begin to realize that any thought repeated long enough becomes a stable signal, and that signal quietly shapes your decisions, your behavior, and eventually the outcomes you call destiny. Most people live their entire lives broadcasting chaos. They allow their brains to absorb conflicting signals, negative news, invisible fears, constant comparisons, and short-term desires. Their minds are never trained to filter. They simply react, and a reactive brain can never lead a powerful life. Those who understand this principle do the opposite. They start treating the brain as a strategic asset, not something to waste casually, but something to protect, train, and direct with intention. They become selective about what they allow into their minds because they understand that what enters today determines how they act tomorrow. One of the most important shifts at this stage is a change in how information is consumed. The untrained mind consumes information like a starving man, swallowing everything, believing everything. The awakened mind understands that not all information has value. Much of it only creates noise, weakens focus, and silently exhausts the brain. The more overloaded the brain becomes, the worse decision-making gets. This is why many intelligent people still make terrible choices, not because they lack intelligence, but because their minds are constantly tense, scattered, and disorganized. The wealthy understand that clarity of thought is more valuable than volume of knowledge. When the brain is trained properly, something unusual happens. You don't have to try harder, yet results improve. Not because you move faster, but because you stop doing what doesn't matter.
A clear mind allows you to distinguish movement from progress, busyness from effectiveness. At this level, you begin to control your inner dialogue. You no longer allow negative thoughts to run unchecked like an unedited film. You learn to observe them, separate from them, and choose not to act on them. This is a skill most people never develop, yet it is the foundation of every major achievement. Those who do not master their minds are driven by emotion. They act when they feel motivated and stop when they feel tired. Those who master their minds act based on decisions, not temporary feelings. Emotions come and go. Decisions anchored to long-term vision remain. Once you understand that the brain can be reprogrammed through intentional repetition, you begin building new mental habits. You don't just change external behavior, you change how you think about who you are. And when identity shifts, behavior follows automatically. The wealthy don't tell themselves they are trying to become disciplined. They tell themselves they are disciplined people. The difference lies in how the brain receives the message. One is effort, the other is identity. The brain always seeks to behave in alignment with the image you believe about yourself. At this stage, you also realize that silence is more valuable than noise. The brain needs space to process, connect, and generate deep ideas. Those who constantly fill their time with noise never give their minds a chance to do real work. Those who understand this principle intentionally create space, because strategy emerges in silence. A powerful brain is not one that is always thinking. It is one that knows when to think and when to stop. This control creates a calm presence that outsiders often mistake for coldness. In reality, it is the sign of a mind no longer ruled by impulse. When the brain becomes organized, you start seeing life as a system. Every problem has structure. Every result has a cause. You stop reacting emotionally to challenges. You observe, analyze, and adjust. This is the moment you move from participant to operator. Another critical realization is that the brain must be fed with the right beliefs, not vague hope. Belief is not what you wish would happen, it is what you accept as possible and act in alignment with. The brain does not distinguish between external reality and deeply held belief. It adjusts behavior to make that belief real. Those who don't understand this sabotage themselves with limiting beliefs. They don't lack ability, they lack belief in their ability to apply it consistently. Their own mind becomes the obstacle instead of the tool. When you change the way you speak to yourself, you are reprogramming the brain. Internal language is not casual, it is command. The brain receives commands and works to execute them. The wealthy are extremely careful with how they define themselves because they know the brain will work tirelessly to prove those definitions true. At the highest level of this principle, the brain is no longer pulled by fear or short-term desire. It is guided by long-term vision. You no longer need to force yourself forward. Progress becomes natural because your mind has been trained to operate at that level. From the outside, it may look like luck or like things come easily to you. What people don't see are the years you spent training your mind in silence. They don't see the moments where you chose discipline over comfort, clarity over distraction. A well-trained brain creates internal stability, and that stability is the foundation of real power. Someone unstable on the inside can never control the outside world. Someone who masters their mind can remain steady in chaos, because they don't seek certainty from circumstances, but from themselves. Ultimately, this principle leads to a truth you cannot avoid. Your life is not determined by what happens to you, but how your brain interprets and responds to what happens. When you master your mind, you stop being a victim of circumstances. You become the architect of your life. This is why every great achievement begins internally, not with money, not with connections, not with opportunity, but with a disciplined, organized mind guided by a clear objective. When you fully grasp this principle, you stop chasing success. You build the mental foundation that makes success inevitable. And that is the difference between those who briefly touch the top and those who hold their position for a lifetime. Subscribe and follow the channel for daily self-improvement and valuable knowledge.